Okay, we should be live. What is going on, everybody? I hope that you are all having an amazing Wednesday night, right? We are back with another live stream. What we're going to be doing is, as always, breaking down current market conditions for the pairs that I like to trade and, answering questions, breaking down, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then hopefully helping you guys become a better trader in the process, right? So, the way that these calls work is, as always, if you guys have questions, right, there is a little chat box that is somewhere, right, whether you're on your phone or your computer, it's somewhere around there where you can type in your question and then you have the ability to ask a question, right? And then what I'll be doing is I'll be looking through the chat box occasionally throughout the live stream and answering those questions right here in front of you guys. So if you are currently a student or if you are currently not a student, either way, this is a great opportunity for you to get one-on-one help without having to get one-on-one help, right? So since we are still pretty new to these live streams, the calls are relatively smaller. There's not that many people that are watching right now, so right, it's an even better opportunity, right, for you to get some extra help. You know what I mean? Because eventually, whenever we keep consistent with these, we're going to be getting, hundreds, if not hopefully thousands, if not millions or billions, right, of viewers, right? And then at that point, it's going to be a little bit harder for me to answer your questions, ladies and gentlemen, right? So what we're going to be doing today is, like I said, breaking down different pairs in the market, going over current market conditions, and also answering some questions that I had sent to me throughout the previous week that just passed. So take your notes, and like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them, right? So we're going to go ahead and get right into it, right? And for the people that are new, that are watching this, that are tuning in from wherever you're tuning in from, beautiful people, right? My name is Ollie, right? Ollie Cashflow, but that's what people like to call me, but my real name is Gianni, right? I've been trading now for a good amount of years, a good amount of time, so I like to say that I'm an experienced person and I'm an honest person that is here to help you learn, right? So I'm not a billionaire yet, or I'm not a millionaire yet, and I'm not even a six-figure trader yet. I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars that I'm making every single month or year, but I'm able to help pay my bills with money that I make from trading, and it's something that I've learned, and it helped me leave my job when I was relatively young, right? So I'm here to help you guys do the same thing. So I hope you guys are excited, right? And what we're going to be covering first is, before we get into other questions and stuff like that, is the pair that I typically like to trade the most, which is Euro USD, right? I typically trade primarily on a US regulated account, so I'm limited to the options that I have when it comes to leverage or tradable markets, right? So I trade Forex, so the most liquid pair that pays the most money and that is the easiest that has the easiest predictability, I guess is what you would say, in my opinion, is Euro USD, right? So we're going to be breaking down what happened the past 7 days, right? So if you guys want to see the beginning of this series, because I always I trade the same pair at the same time all the time, so you can learn a lot from watching the previous live streams as well, from where the market has been moving, right? And then you guys can see how it's progressed up to this current point, right? So we've been pretty accurate, right? We've been pretty accurate with our analysis and our overview of Euro USD up until last week, right? Last week I got kind of smacked. What happened is, let's go back to last Sunday, right? Sunday was... Oh no, not too bad. That was mid last week. Sunday was right. Oh no, we'll go back to last Wednesday. I forgot I'm doing these on Wednesday now. Yeah, so we were. Yeah, so I did get smacked. That is when I got smacked. Right. So, the previous Wednesday, right? So 2 weeks ago, we were analyzing EU. And at a certain point, I'm pretty sure what happened is I thought that this was going to be a bottom, right? That this was going to be a strong support level and that the market was going to react really heavy in this area right over here. And we ended up buying, and we ended up winning a few of the trades. But then what happened is, at a certain point on Wednesday, before the live stream, the market had ooh, excuse me, sorry, my throat's dry. What was I saying? Oh yeah, we had really volatile news reports that came out, right? I forgot what it was. I think it was like CPI or something like that. But either way, at first we dropped a total of, let's say, in an hour, maybe, because this is a 5-minute time frame, right? In an hour, maybe 3 hours, 2 hours, whatever. Over 100 pips, right? Over 100 pips, really fast, right? So basically, the trade that I was holding that wasn't profits that I got in, like, at around here, right? I got stopped out of it, right? And then what ended up happening, too, is that we smashed through very significant and very strong, if I'm lagging, excuse the camera. I'm working on getting a new webcam, guys. I've been browsing different ones on Best Buy, right? But I'm a kind of a noob when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, eventually we'll have a better camera, right? We'll have a better camera, right? But for now, if I'm lagging, excuse me, right? But point being is, what ended up happening is we broke through all these other major support levels that you can see that are colored and marked, right? And so I'm pretty sure that I got in on another buy around here. I'm pretty sure it was around here somewhere. It was either like around here or like around here or something. Somewhere in this level, somewhere in this area, I got into another buy, right? And then immediately, right? And pretty much immediately, that same day, we dropped another 100 pips, right? Out of nowhere, right? So then this has me wondering, why is USD getting this much power over the market, right? Because it's normal for Euro US to maybe move like a good, I'd say 40 to 60 pips on average for a daily average. But out of nowhere, it's been having these very impulsive moves, right? Which is normal when it comes when you're trading with the news, or when you're trading during volatile market conditions, right? But it's important to dive a little bit deeper as to why it happened, and then other things that we could do to analyze, to see, I guess, what's the way to say it the best way? I guess the cross analysis to see what we could have maybe done to see if we should have sold, which obviously we should have done looking in hindsight, but I'm going to turn my camera off. Looking in hindsight, but point being is, we're going to break all that stuff down now. And then we're also going to look at where Euro US currently is trading, and what we're currently looking at, and what has been happening, right? I'm going to take a sip of water, guys. Excuse me. Wait, thank you. Okay, we should be good now. But, yeah, back to this, right? So, why did we drop a total of almost 300 pips in the past week, right? What happened, what caused the move, and we're going to see what we could have done to reanalyze the trade and possibly capitalize on this movement instead of losing our entries, right? So, a message that I told last week, which is something that I'm still personally working on doing. Not that I'm changing my strategy, but I'm working on figuring out what type of, because I usually I like to identify myself as like an intraday trader, or more of like a scalper kind of as well. But when you really do think about it, it's hard to do both of those at the same time when you're looking at multiple time frames, right? So I'm trying to figure out a different approach to that, and I'm going to be updating you guys with that journey. But point being is, that's what's been that's what we're looking at over here, and that's what you guys are seeing here currently. But we'll get into that first, right? Or we'll get into that later. What we're going to do first is go back to replay mode and go back to before this drop happened. Right, and for those of you guys that are new here, I know I talk kind of fast, but bear with me. And I'm a little confused actually, because we talked about this already on last Wednesday. We talked about this last Wednesday. So after Let me close this out actually and replay to a different candle. We'll go to the next morning. We'll go to right here. So this is the. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to go to a specific candle. So we'll do. Okay, we want Wednesday. So we'll go to Thursday. Yeah, the next morning. The next morning after the live stream that we did last week is where we'll start out here. Okay, so this is where we were at beginning of last week, right? On Thursday, to be specific. Okay, so let me delete this. Okay, so this is where we were trading at immediately after the previous live stream that we did. And on the previous live stream, what I had, I guess, predicted, for lack of better words, or what I guess my game plan was seeing that we had this giant drop-off, seeing that we had this giant liquidity gap here, seeing that we broke through all these levels, I figured, right, that we would at least need to retrace at least back up to here. Right, so my first trade of that week, or the first trade after the live stream was I had bought in, or I bought the market. I don't know if bought-in's a word, but I bought the market. So I'm pretty sure I had to set up something similar. I don't remember exactly. So it'd be something similar to this, I'm imagining, right? I had something like this going on, where we were targeting at the middle of this gap minimum, right, which was the previous whole number zone, 8,000, that we had broken through. And I figured, again, if we really did break through it, that we had to come back and then maybe retest somewhere near this level, right? So I was hoping to catch, and this is 60 pips, at least 20 to 30 pips minimum, right, before taking at least partial profits, right? And my stop loss at that time, I'm pretty sure that I had it right here below this low. And that would, I probably would have done it like around here. Probably more or less is what I'm assuming I did. Like 30 pips. Or maybe I got in at the break of, I think I wanted to get in above here. Or something like that. But we'll just assume, you know, we got in around here. Right? What ended up happening shortly after, right, is it looked like I was in profits. I was happy. Right? And then I got stopped out. Right? And then the market came over to the next zone. I hate when it doesn't pause. Stuff pisses me off sometimes. You know, you pay for quality software, you know, from TradingView, you know, and then it does sometimes it'll go for, you know, forever. But either way, yeah, so we got stopped out here. Okay, then what happens, right? Okay, is I figured, all right, you know, we came down to the next whole number zone, 7,000, right? We came down to 7,000, right? This was maybe a fake out, right? We were probably having, you know, some momentum here. Obviously, institutions are able to tell that a lot of people are setting up buy orders in this area. So what did they do? You know, they did a price, you know, they did a liquidity hunt right here, right? They did a liquidity hunt, stop people out, like myself included, right? So me knowing that, or thinking that I know that, and I do know that that's usually what happens, because that is majority of the time what the case is whenever you get stopped out at a really strong support level, and there is a lot of other signs showing that the market is supposed to go back up or go back down, even though technically you're not supposed to know what it's supposed to do, right? Using your technical analysis, and then also in conjunction with fundamental data and news releases, you can make an educated guess, ladies and gentlemen. You can make a pretty educated guess about what it's going to do. And based off of our track record, based off of our history with trading Euro USD specifically, I'm typically pretty right when it comes to the analysis of everything, right? So thinking that this is a liquidity hunt, what did I do, right? Being a little bit cocky and conceited because of what I just told you guys, that I'm pretty consistent with it, right? I make, mistakes too. I'm human, right? I got a little bit cocky, you know what I mean? I got a little bit, conceited. I was like, okay, whatever, I know, I already made my analysis on EU. I know what it's going to do. This is always what happens, right? So what are we going to do, ladies and gentlemen? We're going to buy, right? We're going to buy again, okay? And we're going to target the same places, right? And we're going to have the same stop loss concept, right? Make it a 3-to-1 minimum. I'm pretty sure is something probably like what I did, right? We think we're in profits a little bit. We're happy. Right? And this is a good amount of time. Okay, now it's 5 p.m. New York just closed. I'm thinking, damn, it's still here. Okay? Then what happens? We get stopped out again. Right? We got stopped out again. Okay? So now I'm thinking, man, why is why is USD specifically tanking down this much? Why are we getting this much selling pressure? Right? And then the only thing that I could get a general conclusion as to why, right, aside from this is where it comes into fundamental data, right? So fundamental data, right, last week with CPI and with Jerome Powell speaking and the Fed speaking and everything like that, the main thing that I was able to conclude was that interest rates for the US bank rates are not getting cut right now, right? And for those of you guys that don't know how this works, right, I'm figuring out my best approach to this as well, right? So I'm gonna, I'm gonna tell you guys my thought process, and you're gonna follow me here, right? So last year in 2023, right, towards the end of the year, it was announced, the U.S. announced that the Fed was going to be cutting the interest rates for the U.S. 4 times in 2024, right? 1 time per quarter, right? And that was supposed to have started, right? We were already, we're almost to the point where we were supposed to get the second rate cut already, or we might have already passed that point. But either way, we already passed the point where we were supposed to get the first rate cut, and that did not happen yet, right? So the way that it works, right, to my knowledge, right, is the interest rates that the Fed is talking about, right, whenever they're talking about cutting the rates, is not the rates that you get for like a savings account, like the interest rates that you have for a savings account, or like credit card interest, or like loan interest, right, for you, a citizen of the U.S., right? It's bank-to-bank interest loans, right? So when a bank needs money, right, when people are requesting for mortgage loans or car loans, or people are requesting to withdraw their funds from their bank account, whatever the case is, right, as we all know, banks don't have the money in the account, ladies and gentlemen. It's not there, right? So what are banks going to do, right, in order to get a large sum of money fast? What are they going to do? They're going to request that money from another bank, right? So what's it going to do? Is Chase just going to willingly give money to Bank of America for free? No. They're not going to do that, right? They're going to charge them interest, right? They're going to charge, and that's the interest that is discussed, right, inside of the Fed policy, right? Because the banks are the ones that control all of the money in the world, pretty much, right? And it's bank-to-bank interest with international rates as well, I'm pretty sure, right? So if another country is needing to borrow money from the U.S., right, the interest rates right now are high, right? Meaning that the value of the dollar is high, right? Because what this means is that, let's say that the U.S., let's say that I'm Germany, right, and you, the viewer, you're America, right? Let's say, hey, America, I need $200 million from you guys to do something, XYZ, right? And you guys are going to say, okay, awesome, Germany, we're cool with each other now. Here's the capital that you need. Here's $200 million, right? We're not going to give it to you for free, though, right? So we're going to charge interest. I don't know the exact number because I'm not that, I'm not that in tune with the market yet, right? I'm human, right? I don't know everything about the market. I'm working on getting more established with economic data, right? I'm pretty sure it's somewhere between 5% right now, maybe 5 to 7%. I'm not too sure, right? But either way, it's higher compared to where it used to be, right? So keep this in context, right? So you're Germany, or I'm Germany, you're America, you gave me $200 million, right? Let's say that you're charging, let's say that you're charging me 6% interest right now. We'll go in the middle, 6% interest on that $200 million, right? Obviously, that probably means that the value of the currency that you're giving me is probably worth a lot if I'm having to pay that much interest on it, for one. And for two, right, I'm gonna have to pay you back more money compared to if I was having to pay you 3% interest, right? So if I was having to pay you 3% interest, you're technically getting less money back, which means that you're not making as much money, which I believe in theory makes the value of that currency go down. It'll make the value of your dollar go down because you're not getting as much money back for giving me $200 million, right? And I'm only gonna give you 3% interest because I don't think your money's worth 6% interest, right? Is pretty much what that's saying, right? And same thing with bank-to-bank contact or bank-to-bank transactions, where it's a bank might think, or not, they don't think it's not them who controls it. But if the Fed is saying, okay, we're going to cut interest rates, let's say it's 6%, and the Fed says that we're going to cut interest rates by 1%, right? And it's now 5% interest, right? For bank-to-bank transactions, right? That means that a bank is going to get less money for their money, pretty much, right? So I think that has correlation with the dollar in the sense that when the interest rates are higher, that the value of the dollar is higher, and when the interest rate's lower, the value of the dollar is lower. And something with inflation, I know I'm going to sound like a noob to the people that are smart asses on here, right? Because I know there's going to be someone eventually that sees this, and it's going to be, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about with inflation. Inflation is kind of confusing when you plug it into all the other aspects of what actually causes it. Obviously, it means that things are more expensive, and obviously, what does that mean? That the value of the dollar is less. So if the value of the dollar is less, right, I'm pretty sure that if interest, I might be wrong, it could be wrong, right, it could be wrong. It's obviously one of the two options, right? If interest rates are going down, that means that inflation, if interest rates are going down, if inflation is high, interest rates are high. Yeah, because that's how it is right now. So I'm pretty sure it's the opposite. So if interest rates are low, that means that inflation is going to be lower. I think. I could be wrong. I'll do more research and I'll update you guys next week, right? Because this is all things that I'm researching as we speak because it's affecting my trades, right? And also, so that's the fundamental data, right? So the Fed hasn't cut interest rates yet, right? Which means that the value, again, and this is going to tie into my next point, right? Which means that the value of the dollar is higher right now, because the interest rates are higher right now. And then now the way that applies to like mortgage interest rates and like that kind of stuff is because the bank is going, so the bank-to-bank transactions, that's what the Fed is dictating with interest rates, with Fed policy interest rates or whatever, right? And now that the bank gets these numbers, right, that's what they'll propose for their actual interest rates for loans or transactions of that nature, right? And now I can bring it up next because this will take me too long to bring up right now. But I have an investment account with Merrill Lynch, which is owned by Bank of America now. And the way that it works is the account that I'm getting, it gets 5% interest a month. 5% a month. It's like 4.95 right now, interest a month. But it could change based off of the Fed. If the Fed was to cut interest rates, let's say 7% right now for Fed policy interest rates. If they were to cut that from like 7 to 5, that would potentially cut my 4.95 interest down to like 3.0% interest probably, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So they are in correlation. So that's something to take into consideration, right? That way you guys just have that knowledge of that, right? So the way that ties into my next point now, right? So again, high interest rate, high value of the dollar, right? The Fed has not cut interest rates. They announced that again last week, that they're not planning on cutting it again, right? So that means that the value of the dollar is very strong, right? Meaning that the value of, or that the pair Euro USD, since USD is the quote currency, the second currency, that's why the market went down, right? And that's why it continued to go down. But I was like, okay, this is what made me start thinking a little bit to the next point, right? Is this, okay, this is when the Fed announced that interest rates weren't going to be cut. And this was CPI and all this stuff. That CPI was over here, Okay, and there were some other news releases in between everything there, in between this area too, but not major ones, right? So what confused me was this area right here. Why did the market continue to break down through this level and through this level? Because those were really strong levels, right? And how do we know that they're strong levels, right? Well, let's go look at a higher time frame. Oops, let me hide all this stuff for you so it's cleaner. Let's go look at a higher time frame. Oops. So 6,000. Hold on. I already forgot the price. What was I talking about? 7,000. Okay, 7,000. So let's go to 4 hour. Hide the drawings. Last time that we were at 7,000 was back in February, right? February 14th, right? And what happened when we came back to that price? The market fucking exploded, right? So I'm thinking, okay, since we're at that price again, what's the market gonna do? It's gonna go up, I'm assuming, right? And we still got stopped out. So that made me start wondering, okay, yes, there's news. I turned my camera off. Oops. Yes, there's news that brought us to this price, but what is the factor that pushed us through that price when it was a really strong support level, right? So the only thing that I could conclude, right, with my limited, I wouldn't even say limited, right, with my mass amount of knowledge, I would say actually, is it has to be the geopolitical stuff that's going on with Iran, Israel, or not Iran, with Israel and Palestine, right? And then what's happening with all the attacks that are going on there, and that's causing fear, uncertainty, and doubt, ladies and gentlemen, right? The term for that in crypto is FUD, right? It's causing FUD, right? And now what this means, right, is when there's fear, urgency, and distress in the market, right, people are going to sell their risk assets, right? So for the people that are actually watching this and paying attention, okay, you have a guess of what a risk asset is. Okay, I'm going to say it again. When there's fear, urgency, and fear, urgency, and distress, or fear, uncertainty, I don't know why I just said that. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When there's that going on in the world, okay, people are naturally going to sell their risk assets and get cash back in their hands. What is a risk asset? Give me an example of a risk asset, ladies and gentlemen. Risk asset. What is a risk asset? Oh, I can't even see the chat. Let me turn that on. Nice. Yeah, gold. Gold is a good example, right? Gold, that's a good, yeah, perfect example, right? Gold, Bitcoin, oil, silver, whatever, right? Real estate, bonds, cars, whatever, right? Anything of value, right? Anything that, you know, I wouldn't say cars. Take that back. Sorry. Not cars. Don't write that down, right? That's not it. That I wouldn't consider that. That's just a liability, right? But you get the point. So gold, yeah, right. We'll use gold and Bitcoin for example, right? Notice how Bitcoin has been tanking, right? Not tanking, but we have a very, very, very prominent looking triple top, right? Very prominent looking triple top, and we're right at the neckline, ladies and gentlemen, right? If this is actually a real triple top, okay, Bitcoin is going to drop probably another $8,500, putting Bitcoin right around 50,000, right around this support level, okay? And the way that we know that, right, is a secret hack for those of you guys that don't know this, right? Let me see if I can turn my camera on so I can clip this, so I can look cool for Instagram, okay? Oops. Right, okay. So, for those of you guys that don't know how to identify where you should put your targets, okay, for double tops or triple top trading patterns or head and shoulders or whatever, okay, you take the distance of the middle of the pattern and you draw that down to the bottom of the neckline, okay? And that distance is ideally the distance that the market is going to then travel down when it breaks the neckline, okay? And I can show you guys some other examples of that, but that's how it works, okay? And if you don't believe me, go back test it and go study it and go see for yourself, ladies and gentlemen, right? That's a little secret hack, right? Not too many people know that, right? But you get to learn it for free, right? Or you get to learn it here, live, because I told you, right? And if you don't think I'm right, go back test it yourself. Go prove me wrong, right? Again, if you have a head and shoulders pattern, it's 9 times out of 10, you're always going to be able to hit the exact distance from the top of the head to the neckline. So go check that out, right? Okay, but anyways, right, Bitcoin has been going down pretty significantly, right, the past few weeks, okay? We reached a high of 73,000-ish, right? And right now, we're currently at $59,000 for a Bitcoin, right? So that's because people are selling their risk assets, right? The reason they're selling their risk assets, again, is because there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market, right? So whenever they're selling their assets, that's pumping more value into the dollar, ladies and gentlemen. That's what this all started from, is why has Euro USD been tanking, right? Or why has DXY, why has the dollar, better yet, been exploding recently, right? Reason being is because people are selling their risk assets, right? And they're taking more cash, and they're putting more cash in the bank, right? And now that there's more cash in the bank, more banks have more money to loan out at these high interest rates, right? And they're going to make more money, which is going to pump the value of the dollar up even more. Okay, so that's where it all circles back around to. Okay, so now so it's like, Ollie, okay, whatever, you just told us a bunch of mumbo jumbo about banks. What does that have to do with me learning how to trade Forex, bro? What are you talking about, right? Obviously, we have to break down how does this correlate into our technical analysis, and how does this correlate to the losses that we had on Euro USD this past week, right? So, let's go back to Euro USD. Okay, so we were looking at, or we don't even need to go back to replay, honestly. Okay, so yeah, so I bought here, lost that trade, and then now I haven't been trading. And then, dude, you don't want to know what's stupid today? I called out in the Discord group yesterday or something. I called out buys, right? And I was in it all night, right? I was in it all night, okay? I had a stop loss, like, down here, below 6,000. Because I figured, man, I was like, dude, if we're breaking the level 6,000, right? We haven't traded at this price that we're currently trading at since November of last year, right? So it's been a long time. That's almost fucking what, November, December, January, February, March, April, 6 months, right? 6 months we haven't traded at this price. So I'm thinking it has to go up, right? It has to, right? If it breaks 6,000, that's just, that's some, some stuff's going on, right? And now we're nearing elections, right? Right? So we're going to start seeing a lot more manipulation, right? We're going to start seeing a lot more, weird volatility happening more than likely in these upcoming months, right, ladies and gentlemen? So you got to be prepared for that as a trader, right? How do you get prepared for that? You got to practice and not be greedy, right? Because if you're greedy, you'll blow an account in these kind of market conditions, right? This is where people lose money, or this is where people make money, right? So last elections, I kind of missed them, but I know I've seen a lot of stories, and I know a lot of people that we're able to make a lot of money during election season, right? So we're nearing that time, okay? So either way, but my analysis was pretty much the same analysis that I had up here. We need to fucking go up, and the market needs to go up. We're extremely, extremely, extremely oversold, right? And the market needs to have a correction where I could bare minimum catch 20 to 30 pips, right? So that's what I'm doing. That's what I was doing. Right, so we had it, and my target was actually higher, dude. I was trading this one aggressively, right? I had to take profit way up here, right? And then what happened, right? So I called the trade out probably around here, right? We drew a fib. I'll delete this. I'll just do it all over again for you guys. Okay, right? We were trading around this level. I saw that we had a rejection around. I'll replay it. I think I'd say that the market was like right here. Okay, so I saw that we came down right above the 6,000 whole number zone, and we had a very strong wick rejection, right? We had a very strong wick, right? So I figured, okay, awesome. What we're gonna do is we're gonna draw our fib from there to there, and we're currently around this orange zone or the gold zone on this fib structure. So we can go ahead and enter long on here, right? Let's say we got in a little higher. Let's say we got in right here in the break, right? Again, we're going to target. I was targeting all the fibs here, all the levels. And then I had my stop loss just to be safe, right? Because I had a big take profit. I put my stop loss right below this level, okay? Right before the 6,000 level. And I figured if I get stopped out here, I'm done trading for the rest of the week, right? So what happened is I got in there. Let me go to the 15-minute. Right, what time was this at? Yeah, right in the yesterday morning. So we got in, and I'm thinking, damn, you know, I'm thinking, fuck, I'm about to get stopped out about this, like out of this one too, and it was just another really strong wick rejection, right? So I'm in this all night, and then the same thing happened. Okay, same thing happened. See, it's not pausing. I paused it. We'll put it back right here. Right. So the market came back and we had another wick. We had another wick rejection. But at this point, I figured, okay, fib's invalid now. The fib's invalid because we came all the way back to where we started, right? But I still was just holding the trade. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna hold it. And then I went to bed. We woke up. And I was good in profits, right? We were not deep in profits, but we were starting to get into profits. At this point, whenever I woke up, it was like right here. Let's say I woke up. Yeah, like 10, 15 pips only. So nothing crazy. So what I decided to do, right, is whenever I saw that the market started moving a little bit, right, I moved my stop, right, to not break even, but like right around this wick level. Right, if you guys can see this wick. Right, I put my stop at like this wick level right here. And then I got fucking stopped out. Right, and but no. I put my stop loss. It was like right here. Like imagine if so this was the original entry. And then we were already in profit, so I moved my stop loss in profits like like right here. But it was only like maybe I ended up walking out of my out of the trades today with like 600 or 700 more or less. It was like 680 or something like that. So I can't complain, but I didn't get the full amount of profits that I could have gotten, because then what happened is as soon as I got stopped out, the market continued rallying to our original targets, where if I just didn't change the stop loss, we would have ended up hitting take profit 1 and take profit 2, where we're currently trading at right now, right? Where I'm assuming, depending on how the market condition stays throughout the rest of the night through London session. Man, I have a bad lisp sometimes, right? That's a little secret about me, guys. You know what I mean? I whenever I was in high school, you know what I mean, I used to get bullied for it. People used to make fun of my lisp. Believe it or not. I'm just kidding. No one made fun of me. But it was, you know, I used to get embarrassed about it myself. But, you know, whenever you learn to love yourself, you know what I mean? And, you know, you don't have to listen to what people tell you to do. And you don't have to hear other people's opinions about you, because they don't pay your bills. Doesn't matter. You learn to love yourself, ladies and gents. Right? So, either way, we are making a decent bullish flag right here. We're making a decent bullish flag, right? As you guys can see, we're having a good reaction right now as we speak, right? Off of the bottom trend, right? So a bullish flag is when you have a really strong uptrend and then it consolidates in like a pennant pattern, right? Usually, it's going to be one. Oops, that was bad. That was sloppy. My bad. Hold on. Usually, in a flag pattern, it's 1 touch, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Right? And then it's either going to break here and ideally retest there, or option 2 is we might get one here, and then it could do this also. But then typically if it's a bullish one, it's either going to be this option right here, or this is going to be touch number 6, and then touch number 7 is where you get that typically, right? So I'm assuming that this is going to be a bullish flag, but it's a little hard to tell, a little too soon to tell, right? Because right now we're in the middle of it, right? We're in the middle of this triangle right here. If it is a bullish flag, we enter either on the break or the retest. Either option, whatever you prefer, right? Whatever you prefer. Stop loss is going to go right below the triangle. And your take profit, you just do a nice little 3-to-1, right? 3-to-1 just so happens to line up with our 7,000 whole number zone, which we could potentially be retesting after we made this giant break, and then USD might continue to tank, right? A little too early to tell, but that could be what is potentially happening, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'm going to be looking at is Euro USD, okay? And we're going to see if we're going to break to the upside and enter long. And if we don't get that confirmation, right, option number 1 is long. And if we end up breaking down to the bottom, same concept. Stop loss is going to go, whoa. Stop loss is going to go, I'd put it right above here, above the triangle. I guess you can put it a little higher right there. And then same thing, 3-to-1, make it a 3-to-1. The sell will be a little bit of a bigger trade. Personally, I don't want it to sell. I want it to go up. But, you know, the market does what it does, not what you want. So, that would be the current analysis on EU, depending on what happens with this current triangle pattern here as well. Also, what maybe we could do is see here, draw this fib from this impulsive move here. And then right now, as you guys can see, we're currently inside of the orange zone, and we maybe potentially could trade down to the gold. But either way, that's another confirmation that buys probably are going to be valid for this session, or for this trade. Also, no other signs here. This shit looks like it's going to fucking tank right here. So, you know, who knows? Might tank down at the gold zone and then push up, right? Only time will tell, ladies and gentlemen. Something, too, that I wanted to address is people... I'll do this kind of fast. Nah, I don't have time. I've been talking too long. That'll take me like another 15-20 minutes. Somebody had a question about pending orders and the difference between like sell stops and buy limits, sell limits, and instant execution. We can talk about that a different time. I'll talk about that next week, and then we'll hop on a call too also. And then also too, I do think EU and all these other pairs are going to keep going up because my technical analysis right here, it says it's going to go up, right? Nah, I'm just kidding. If we look here, was it the 4 hour? Was it the 1 hour? I think it's the 1 hour. Right, this is more of a common pattern in crypto. Literally, it sounds stupid saying it, but it's called the W pattern, where it's this. Could be a double bottom too, right? I think it's kind of stupid considering that a double bottom, but I mean, it could be, honestly, could be. But either way, oops, no, it would have been like this actually. Yeah. Right, that would be it right there. And then we this happens like you go look at like Ethereum. This happened with Litecoin pretty good, pretty accurately with Litecoin like a year or two ago, right? But then you put a little ray right here at the top of at the top, okay? When that happens, this is like a bottoming out pattern, right? It looks like we bottomed out here, and then now we'll probably may retest the neckline, and then we're sky high, baby, right? And then we become millionaires from the trade. So that's my analysis for you guys. I talked a little bit longer than I wanted to, but right, we got some sauce in, right? We got some sauce in, right? So I hope you guys learned a lot. If I was confusing for you, just ask me some questions. Don't hesitate about that. But guys, I appreciate you all being here, and I will update you guys in the Discord group, and I will see you all again next Wednesday at the same exact time. I'm gonna turn my camera off to say goodbye to you guys. But again, if you have any questions or any concerns, you guys know where to find me. You know where to reach me. And we'll update you guys with how this trade turns out. And if you guys are not in Cashflow yet, join Cashflow ASAP so you can start making money and so you can get to the top of this, guys. So I appreciate you all. God bless you. Stay abundant. And I'll see you at the top because the bottom is way too crowded, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.